Hi, I'm Skylar, and I'm talking to Lauren Smith, the marine biologist, and we're just going to be asking some questions about your job.
Okay, sounds good.
Um, when did you become interested in working in the environmental sector?
Well, I think that's sort of together a little bit sort of over time because originally I was just always drawn to animals. So that kind of came from my own like personal experience because, I had a couple of dogs growing up, I had rabbits and guinea pigs and that kind of thing. So I was always kind of more drawn to animals than I was sort of other avenues. So it kind of grew like organically in a way that. And it wasn't until later on I even realized, I was probably about 12 when I actually even knew that a marine biologist existed as as that's something that you can become. The same with things like scuba diving and, kind of all this sort of things that are marine related. I just found out about that kind of late in my teens. So it was kind of a bit of a revelation. And then I just thought, well, how can I actually get into it? And that was a bit of a different avenue in terms of, how I kind of went around my school subject.
What was the path you took to get to your job now?
Okay, so I should probably just say as well that so my job at the moment, so I'm a marine biologist, and originally I trained as a marine biologist and coastal ecologist, but I developed a real special interest in sharks. Specifically, I mean, why wouldn't you? They're amazing. But in order to actually get to that place, and I've got like my own little environmental conservation organization that's called Saltwater Life, and that's in my role as a marine biologist. That's what I primarily do, is sort of work for my own little organization. But I got here through quite a few different routes and avenues, really. When originally I started, as I said, sort of with an interest in animals, then it kind of turned more marine based. So let's wind back the clock quite a bit. And I did my GCSEs, and they were just as they were. I didn't really think about, too many options at the time. It's just what I did. When I was doing my A levels, I don't even know if they're called A levels anymore. This is going to be embarrassing me, isn't it, really? AS or whatever they're called. When I did those, the options to actually choose what I wanted to do was actually quite restricted by the school's time. I was also interested in history, randomly, as well as everything else, but how the sort of options worked in my school meant that I couldn't do history. So I sort of almost had that answered for me. What I did do is I did biology, geography, and art. And art was one that was just a bit left field, as far as like people kind of in my background, I guess, of, in this kind of marine research kind of goes. But I loved biology, absolutely loved it. Chemistry and physics I found quite difficult. And if I'm perfectly honest, it's the maths side of things. I still say that even today I'm terrible at maths. How I got through doing anything mathematical or statistical, I do not know. And it was probably from the support and a lot of help from experts in their fields, to be honest. I will fully admit that. So those were my A levels. And I actually thought that I'd maybe go into something like psychology even, or, animal behavior. I just didn't think that without another sort of science, I would be able to get into a marine biology program. Fortunately for me, I went to Plymouth Uni to do my marine biology and coastal ecology undergraduate degree. And they actually accepted geography as like a second science at the time. So I got accepted with the biology and geography as the primary A levels really into the course. Anyway, then I did my undergraduate degree there. after that, after graduating at Plymouth, I took a year out and did that cliche thing, stuck a backpack on my back and wandered off as much as I could around the world. So after my year out, I decided, well, during my year out, I crazily decided to do my PhD. Now, before, I'd always said, I'll maybe do a master's, I'll never do a PhD. Right? I was like, I can't, another 3 years at uni and study. I was like, no way. Yeah, right. So funnily enough, I ended up, I'd applied to universities to do my doctorate in like Australia and New Zealand. No, I came to Scotland. So let's embrace the cold water. So came up to Aberdeen to do my PhD there. And that is when I really got to focus on the shark aspect. So I was looking at basically how sharks know what depth they're at in the ocean. So, and this sort of feeds into, how do sharks know what they're doing? Are they spending time at a certain depth for a certain reason? Are they taking dives deeper to feed? Why are they hanging out at the surface? All this kind of things that I was interested in. And I wanted to know how they did that. So looked at it like from a physiological basis. So, how do they sense pressure, basically? And also, what behaviourally are they doing? So although, yes, I was in Scotland, I managed to go out to the Bahamas for quite a bit of field work to actually go and track sharks out there. So so I did escape the cold weather quite a bit, I will admit. So I had a fantastic time out there, and I got a lot of experience. And again, some of it is the academic side. Okay, so you've got to kind of tick several boxes in that. But it was the hands-on experience that was invaluable, I think, in terms of field work, doing photography stuff, getting underwater, making observations, and making contacts. There's people that I met out on field programs that I still work with today in a like a professional capacity, but also they're just really good friends. And that's huge to it as well. It's not just kind of one route. And I always say this to people, there's many avenues into this. This is the path I took. And yes, I went through the university steps because I found that I could do it, basically. I quite liked the structure. I liked knowing what I needed to do, and I could do the assignments, and that kind of worked well for me. That's not everyone's route, and I work with plenty of people that have either done a more hands-on approach, or they've gone, say, photography or more conservation in terms of like environmental awareness of environmental education and outreach campaigns for charities, lots of different avenues into what is effectively sort of marine biology and marine conservation. So I always say to people, don't think just because my route's academia, don't think that that's the only way. Once I'd done my PhD, I then got a job with a biopharmaceutical company, as you do, that were actually looking at the shark immune system. So I kind of, again, keeping that shark link, but on a completely different, path, and looking at immunology and, the shark immune system, basically. So started doing that. Then I started itching to get back in the field. So I went out again, drawn to warmer climates, and I worked on shark conservation projects in the Philippines for a while. Then I came back and I started working for a local and native species marine aquarium up here in Scotland. That was Macduff Marine Aquarium, and that is once again involved a lot of diving and a lot more sort of engagement with the public and different age groups as well. So I started chatting with those, and I was working with those, all sorts of different groups, quite a lot. And then since then, I've really kind of continued that, and I basically do small research projects, and I do outreach, and I do dive exploration projects, under the umbrella of Saltwater Life, which is just a little environmental conservation organisation that I've kind of set up. Originally, I started doing this kind of thing years ago in about 2009 as a way to kind of do public outreach. It started like that, and just sort of to spread information, the real truth about sharks, and because they're just so in the media, just like a lot of the time they're just ramped up to be these like insane, crazy killers and stuff, and it's just trying to get the actual sort of information out there. So that's how I sort of developed Saltwater Life along the way.
I have so many questions about the sharks on its own. I adore sharks so much, so I can relate with that.
Excellent.
So what does like your job involve? So like just a kind of average day.
On an average day, it can be really varied, to be honest, as you can imagine. So
yeah.
say if I'm based here in Scotland, then, and if I'm working on a particular project, it's usually I'm either out in the field, perhaps going to the beach. So I've done as well as I search for shark and skate egg cases that have washed up locally. That's something that I do, so I can be out there perhaps like collecting data on local beaches. I've also done a recent work on marine pollution in terms of plastic pollution that's washing up on the coast. So I've been surveying coastlines as well. And that's all been sort of around the northeast. So I can basically be out on the beach collecting things. If I've already like collated, got all my data, then I can be on the computer inputting stuff into databases, or I can be writing up publications. I do some writing, so some of it's like academic and it goes into peer review sort of journals, so like like publications for journals, but also I write for the Surfer's Path magazine. And I've got like a creature feature column that I do, and I'm I'm highlighting different little species on that, and doing like putting some of my photos together with it. And I think part of that I really enjoy as well, because obviously like the science is important, but also being able to convey that information to the general, just they're interested in marine life, but they don't want all the stats on this, that and the other and graphs to look at. They want just it sort of verbalized and broken down. So I do pieces about that, just to kind of hopefully give people something interesting to read about, because a lot of it, if you surf, if you dive, if you whatever, snorkel, then quite often you're really interested in the marine life like around our shoreline. And there is like loads, there's absolutely loads of interesting things on like Scottish coastlines and British coastlines that is worth finding out about, really. So yeah, I can be writing pieces for magazines as well, so pretty varied, to be honest, on a day-to-day basis.
What was the biggest challenge getting to where you are?
When I was younger, I was doing a lot of sort of diving, a lot of shark work, and I wasn't always taken seriously, I think, as possibly as a woman in the field, possibly because I was still pretty young, and I feel that I feel like it's taken a little bit of time for people to go, oh, okay, this, she's serious about what she's doing and she wants to do this. Possibly just my impression of things, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel that it can be a challenging field sometimes to work in. Yeah.
So does your organisation have any opportunities for young people who would be interested?
Yeah, so there's internships that are available, and that is through my collaborative project with the guys out in South Africa. So that's very hands-on, going out on boats, getting in the water, looking at shark data. So that is those are voluntary internships. But in terms of sort of closer within Scotland, then I've been trying to run outreach, so getting people to actually take the material that I've created, you know, like information, things about sharks, and go out, and if there's like little marine events on, or you know, like little festivals, whatever people have got basically in their local area, if they're confident to go and do a little talk about sharks, or you know, just inform people about different environmental aspects, then you know, that's a possibility as well. I'd love to future, if I can grow the organisation a little bit more, and if I can secure funding. It is, I have to say, a lot of things, unfortunately, of course, is down to securing funding for projects. But if we can do that, it would be great to sort of bring more people on board for that. And there's the sort of diving aspect, the scuba diving aspect as well. So at the moment, I'm working together with quite a few people on sort of citizen science projects. So different people are getting involved, scuba diving, or what they're observing around the coastline as well. So that's kind of a thing where sort of you've got everybody kind of feeding into projects. But again, that side is voluntary as well. So yeah, but yeah, there's a few different things going on, and I'm always keen as well that, you know, if people are interested in whether they want to collaborate, whether they've got a certain idea, then just give me a shout, because, you know, I can't promise anything, but if I've got something that's feasible at the time, then, you know, I'm really, really happy to work with anyone. So, yeah.
What would you say to young people interested in marine biology?
Go for it. I would say I'd probably, probably repeating myself slightly from earlier here, but I would say that there's more than one way into working into the field. Don't be disheartened. If you're sat there thinking, I really want to do, you know, something related to marines or marine ocean or that kind of work, but I don't want to go to uni, or I don't feel like I want to spend this time studying, or whatever, then, you know, you can always, there's paths, there's loads of kind of everything from like sea life organizations that are out there taking people out, you know, on boats. They're looking for people to guide and talk about the local marine wildlife, so you can get experience. And that's probably a good point as well, is contact who you can, because if you can get some experience and about your local wildlife, or get passionate about a certain subject, you know, then that will stand you in great stead. If you do want to go and do the research and the academic route, brilliant. Yeah, that's also great. And also, actually, you don't have to be out in the field. You don't have to be diving. You don't have to be out on boats if you don't want to. You know, there's absolutely loads of marine biology jobs that are research-based, laboratory-based, so many different aspects. You know, marine biology is an absolutely vast subject. But I just honestly say is just be passionate about what you do, reach out to people, and just believe in yourself, you know, to do it. Definitely.
One last question we've got.
That's all right.
What would you say to your younger self?
Oh dear. What would I say to my younger self? You know what? I'd just say, just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep going. I feel like I have been quite fortunate about how things have worked out. You know, and I've had quite a few different experiences. Again, sometimes when I think back and I think, oh, I went off on this tangent, you know, and I went off on this tangent, and it was, you know, a little bit more abstract, or perhaps always shark or marine, but it was veering off on different subjects. That said, it's given me a really good kind of overall understanding of be it shark biology or the habitats. You know, I've kind of got an overall viewpoint, which is quite nice, how it kind of just fits into the sort of bigger picture, I guess, into sort of marine habitats and things as well. But yeah, so I'd probably just say keep doing what you're doing, and just don't be afraid to just reach out and take those opportunities. There's possibly a couple of things that I held back on, you know, on a couple of projects, and in hindsight, I shouldn't have. I should have just grabbed it and gone for it. And you know, I could always do a 180 if I had to later down the line, but I held back slightly on a few things possibly. So yeah.
Wow. That's all the questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much for interviewing me.